I've noticed that survival games have been getting a lot easier lately, or at least a lot more accessible. Auto-sorting inventories, generous loot drops, intuitive gunplay systems, they're all kind of becoming the norm. But one game that just got a major update recently refuses to play nice, and that game is SCUM. SCUM is one of those games that you're either going to refund after 30 minutes or sink hundreds of hours into as the brutality just beckons you. The game offers minimal guidance. It throws you into a massive 225 square kilometer map with the barest chance of survival. And after 7 years in early access, SCUM has finally hit its 1.0 release, and with it comes a ton of changes. Some of the main features with this update include an overhauled map with improved foliage and remastered points of interest, a dynamic wetness system where rainfall now affects terrain, and it dries procedurally, which is super cool. There's new armed NPCs with a 40-ish% chance that they'll actually drop their weapon when killed. The weapons now have new textures and animations. There's a new revamped tutorial system and technically beginner-friendly official servers. Now, despite a 7-year-long early access phase, not everything that players were hoping for is here. Long-promised features like Unreal Engine 5 support, higher player counts, natural disasters, and advanced skill systems are not yet in the game. Hopefully those will come at some point, but this update still brings a lot. And when I jumped back into SCUM, which had been a while, I think since their last major update, I was quickly reminded of how insane an undertaking it is, especially when you're just starting out. Progress can take hours of learning. The crafting system alone is a beast. It pulls materials from both your inventory and the environment with an enormous list of possible items to make, and you just gotta figure out which ones you actually need. Fortunately though, the 1.0 update does make some big improvements here. When you break down larger items, parts will now spawn in a circle around you instead of rows, which place them a bit out of reach, creating a little more busy work. And the tutorial is now broken into more clear step-by-step missions. Though I will say the tutorial is very linear to a fault, really. If you do crafting steps out of order, it won't track that and you'll just have to repeat them exactly. And crafting is still very slow and technical. Dying means that you're going to have to repeat a lot of those processes every single time. A knife, a backpack, a bow, basic gear. It's going to take you minutes to create, and it has to be done every single run. It's tedious, but that's also part of SCUM's identity. It's punishing. It makes you want to really not die. Other survival games like Deadside ease the pain with admin-controlled starter kits for servers, even ones that have incredibly generous loadouts for starting, but not in SCUM. This game makes you earn everything, and to a degree, it really improves the satisfaction of when you actually find something or craft something that you're trying to get. Now, once I got geared up and started exploring, I was once again reminded that survival is kind of the core loop here. Not necessarily as focused on PvP combat or building things, but more just staying alive. That's really like your top priority, and then the other stuff comes as distant secondaries, if not tertiary objectives. This game simulates the entire human body, including digestion. Eat or drink too much, you're going to get sick. Health, stamina, thirst, hunger, they all require constant and thoughtful management. Now throw an incredibly punishing combat system on top of that, and you're in for a world of pain. The puppet enemies, SCUM's versions of zombies, can easily overwhelm you. The new NPCs with guns are also terrifying. Their AI might be a little bit on the clumsy side, but the danger they present is absolutely real. One time I beat an armed soldier NPC with an axe inside of a bathroom. Ridiculous? Yes. Memorable? Also yes. And I really enjoy how much the gameplay and power dynamic in this game shifts every time you get a new piece of gear. When you start off, you'll usually only have a bow and arrow, so getting shot at isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's genuinely terrifying because you don't want to start all the way over. And then there's things like the map being absolutely vast, and walking from one point to another takes a huge amount of time and also calories, so finding things like a bike is a huge quality of life upgrade. It transformed what was a stressful trudge into a thrilling ride, at which place exploration felt less exhausting and more exciting. And not a lot of other games offer you gear progression that changes your gameplay so instantly, so dynamically, and changes your strategy and what you're able to do. Definitely one of the higher points for this game. Now, SCUM is a pretty good looking game. It's not exactly the most realistic open world survival game that's out. It's on an older engine, UE4, and it's been in early access for a long time, so it makes sense why it's running on a little bit of older tech. But the 1.0 visual update for sure helps push the game further. The new rain and wetness effects in particular really stood out to me. Exploring the world during a rainstorm, I could see puddles forming on the low spots on the road. It's not quite at the same level as Gray Zone's new rain system, but it's still impressive looking and it helps the world feel far more believable. Now, after sinking hours and hours into SCUM, well, I still didn't have much loot. I didn't have a flashy base. I obviously hadn't explored the majority of the insanely huge map. But I had gone on adventures and I had survived, and I think for a big portion of the players, that's more or less the point. SCUM doesn't let the survival mechanics fade into the background like many of the modern games. You're always under threat. Mistakes like panicking in a knife fight while holding a bow can absolutely end you. It truly feels like the game wants you to die. The real hidden tutorial is you just learning how to not make stupid decisions and try and survive for as long as possible. And if you do make it through, well, it's one of the more rewarding survival experiences out there. Modern conveniences, easy loot, helpful menus, forgiving mechanics, they might make other games more accessible, but they also strip away that satisfaction of making it through another day. And SCUM delivers that satisfaction, assuming that you actually do survive the killer robot mechs that are hunting you down. I would definitely like to try and get to some of SCUM's end game base building and higher tier weapon gameplay loops. I bet that's really fun to do. The time investment seems extreme, but I can absolutely see the draw. The game really feels like it's challenging me to just see how far I can get. And I think because SCUM offers one of the more hardcore systems and such an expansive world with so much to do in it, it's maintained a pretty impressive player base for a long time. This patch clearly bumped the interest to where the title is hitting over 30k concurrent players each day, but to be in early access for 7 years with an impressive player count during much of that time period is very impressive. Sure, it's not pulling in Counter-Strike numbers, but the player count is more than enough to support a smaller studio and continue the game's development, which makes me quite hopeful for continued development for the foreseeable future. An engine upgrade, added skill system features, all that kind of stuff. There's plenty of room for SCUM to grow, and I'm very excited to see where it goes from here. It's been a long journey, but I could see it being substantially longer. Now, one gripe that I have with the new update is that while it's nice to be able to pick up weapons off of NPCs, the RNG tied into that loot feels kinda out of place. I feel like killing an armed NPC means I should be able to go and pick up their gun, right? But there's a 60% chance that it vanishes, which is kind of immersion breaking for a game that is so focused on all the technicalities of survival. Having a gun just vanish into thin air seems a bit weird. One thing that I like from other survival games is they seem to be moving toward a what you see is what you get type system, which feels a bit more grounded and consistent. And if you want to see that done well, check out my video on Winter Survival, a lesser known indie title that really impressed me with some of its mechanics. And if you enjoyed this updated look at SCUM, drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.